now. So I will start with those introductions, then we'll go around. We've got an hour or so, I think, to hear from you all, or as many of you as would like to say something. And an hour will go by quickly. We'll have questions. We probably won't be able to get all of our questions in, just that's what history has demonstrated. You might not be able to tell us everything you wanted to tell us. So there'll be other opportunities, I'm sure, in the future. But in any case, I'm David Durfee. I'm the chair of the committee. I live in Shaftesbury in Bennington County, and I represent Shaftesbury and Sunderland and Glastonbury. And I will ask the vice chair to go next.
Well, yes, Vice Chair, I represent Windsor 4, the town of Barnard, Clonford, Bridgewater, and West Hartford.
Hi there, John O'Brien. I represent Windsor Orange 1, that's Royalton in my hometown, Tunbridge.
My name is Michelle Boslin. I live in northern Windham County. I represent Westminster, Rockingham, and Brookline.
Richard Nelson, Orleans 1, represent the town of Derby.
Jed Lipsky, Lamoille 1 District, Stowe.
I'm Leland Morgan. I represent Olive Grand Isle County and western portion of Milton.
We're missing this afternoon Representative Burt, who's a new member of the committee. So we'll have to let him introduce himself another day. Sidonia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sidonia, I'm the committee assistant from Lincoln.
I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Chair Durfee. Maybe we can just go around and you could say your names and where you're coming from, just so folks get oriented.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Kelly Burfett. I live in Burlington. I'm National Member Policy Director.
Joanna Doran, I live in East.
Mike Pressure from Danville. Thank you for your time.
Emily Raymondberger. I'm from Weybridge, Vermont, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at NIMPA.
Mark Killian, Bolton, and I'm the Office Manager.
Miyako Ozeki in Burlington, and the board member.
Ellen Hardy, I'm a grain farmer in Greensboro.
I'm Becky Madden. I live in Orwell. I'm a farmer, and I also work with UV Extension on the NIMPA board. My name is Jess Hayes Lucas. I live in South Burlington. I'm Oregon.
Joe Watson, live Montpelier, farm work in Warren, NOFA board, and small business owner.
I'm Melissa Oliva. I'm a farmer, live in Montpelier, Vermont, and also I'm part of the board.
Welcome to all of you.
Thanks for letting us cram in. We were excited to have a board meeting this morning at the UU Church and then come over here and get to connect with our legislators. So thanks for the work you do. So I'm going to provide a little bit of an introduction to our organization and share a little bit about what we've been up to. And then we'll hear from a couple of staff members on the particular policy priorities we're advancing this biennium. And then we'll hear from a few of our board members and farmers from the community who have some relevant experiences to share. So thank you, Chair Durfee and the whole committee for having us here, rolling with us. Again, I'm Grace Odell. I've been the executive director at NOFA Vermont, which is the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, for the last 6 years. And as you've heard, we have many colleagues and members of our board, and we're representative of much larger membership still. We have about 1,300 members statewide, and we're growing. We're up 11% from last year, and we've been on a steady trajectory of growth. And I'm excited to share a little bit of background about what we do as an organization and talk a little bit about our priorities. So for any of you who this is new for, and just to hear again, there are lots of different ways that various Vermonters intersect with NOFA's work. Some aspects of our work you might be really familiar with. We do a lot of business planning services and work directly with farmers, and we remain led by a majority farmer and farm worker board. We also work with lots of folks who interact with the food system in different ways. So in the folders in front of you, you can find handouts on the local food security work that we do, along with our funding request about that, a handout on our farm security fund responding to extreme weather events, and our most recent annual impact report. All of those give you a great sort of constellation of ways to learn about the organization. As I mentioned, we are statewide and member driven. We were founded over a half century ago in Putney, Vermont by a group of farmers who believed that they could farm in a way that really worked for people on the planet and organized together. And we really are proud to still be led by a majority farmer board. Our mission, you can see up right here on the screen. And what it comes down to is the understanding that when we get food and farming right, we get so much more right. And people and the planet can really thrive together. Food is that amazing tool right in the middle. So farmers, I'll put this up and so you can just stay with this beautiful slide that an artist in our community made for us. Farmers produce the food that feeds everybody. Y'all know this as our ag committee. We all know that thriving farms benefit our state in so many ways, and each of our communities in ways, economic ways, and all these ways enumerated. So we have more resiliency, we have stronger local economies, we have mutual aid, civic engagement, we are food secure. So there's so many things that when we get the way that farms root our communities correctly, they're like a keystone indicator species. You've heard of in the Pacific Northwest, they talk about the coho salmon swimming. Once the coho salmon swim, we know that the rivers are clean. I think about small farms in Vermont like that. When small farms are thriving, our communities are strong, our towns are strong, our food supply is resilient, we're ready for whatever's coming. So NOFA itself works in a lot of different ways to support farmers and to ensure that everyone has access to the food that they produce. We have a farmer services team that provides direct support to farmers in the form of one-to-one business planning and technical assistance. We have mentorship and cohorts for farmers to learn with and from each other, where we support them in doing visits around the state. We have many funding opportunities like our resilience grants. We have climate resilience planning and organic transition supports to help farmers become certified. Our policy and organizing team, which includes a member-led steering committee, works to listen to what our membership is talking about, hold member meetings all around the state, and then bring those priorities forward here to work on both state and federal policy. At the federal level, we're members of a number of other coalitions like the National Family Farm Coalition, National Organic Coalition, and many more where we work for change at the federal level too. Joanna's going to talk more in a moment about our educational programming, where we work to build markets in direct and wholesale spaces and to increase food security by partnering with local school districts. And our farm to school work, our partnership called Vermont Feed with Shelburne Farms, has been a many-year successful program building out the local food movement that we know and love here in our schools. And finally, Vermont Organic Farmers, which you might hear referred to as VOF, is a USDA accredited organic certification program. So if you go to the store, you go to the co-op and you see that organic seal, that would most likely be certified by VOF here in the state. Oh, thank you. This is a slide about I can also do this. I'll just talk about that. We also throw a big old, here we go. We throw a big winter conference. We believe it to be the largest agricultural conference in the state, although I learned from, I'm sure many of you know, oh my God, Dave Marvin, Butternut Maple, wonderful human who I love. And Dave always says oh, we're the second largest. And finally my husband said well, who's larger than you? And Dave's I'm just trying to be humble. I don't know that there's another larger one. I'm just trying to not claim that. So I think of Dave often. Yeah, maybe there's a couple more. So anyway, we put on a big conference. It's a chance for folks to come together to build community. We have singing and we have, that's the part that I really like, but we have lots of other things like workshops for 2 days on farming. We have intensives, we have keynote speakers who come, a children's conference, and we've been doing this for a long time too. We used to have a barn dance that followed that went all through the night and ended in the morning, but people seem to not have that in them. Although Joe and I do have a party in the summer called Butterfest where we do dance all night in the barn and churn creams. You're all invited July 5th. Okay, so moving on here, back to our Vermont Organic Farmers, which is a USDA accredited certification program. So this was formed by farmers in '85. And it currently certifies 725 farms. Some of you are here in this room today. Thank you. And processors, that's to the National Organic Program. And over NOFA's lifetime, organic has really grown to be a really significant movement nationally and way of life here in Vermont. At the end of 2024, to give you a sense of our scale, VOF certified 162,000 acres of farmland, and VOF producers gross sales at $377 million of economic activity here for the state. We currently certify 117 dairies. Mike Thresher is on our board and is a dairy farmer and is in grain, and we will surely be talking about the struggles that organic dairy in particular have been going through. 168 vegetables and fruit farms, 250 maple operations, so there's still a lot of people. Each of these farms has a substantial positive impact on our communities, the landscape, and rural economies. I do want to point out that with that organic maple, that's 86,000 acres of forest land. And some people ask, what could be not organic about maple, right? Like, what makes it organic? What makes it organic is the way that the farmers and the forest managers tend that land for biodiversity and for health of the whole forest. So it's a huge service that these land stewards are providing, tending the sugar woods. They're also providing jobs, making a delicious product, and really nourishing biodiversity when they're certified with VOF. In order to continue supporting our farmers and all Vermonters having access to this nourishing local and organic food, we have just a couple of focuses this legislative session. First, we're asking you to consider an increase and base funding for our Crop Cash. Thank you. I'm terrible at slides. For our Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share programs. And Joanna's going to share more about those programs in just a moment. And the second ask is to pass the Farm Security Fund, which is a new bill that we expect to come before your committee soon that Maddie's going to talk more about and in detail. And I'm happy to answer any general overview questions, but I think before we open that up, maybe it makes sense to hear from Joanna, Maddie, and the rest of the board members who are going to speak, and then we'll take questions.
How do you prefer to do it?
Or how do you prefer to do it, Chair?
Well, that's fine. Why don't we have Joanna and Maddie come up? Did you want to have two chairs and come at the same time, or do you want to?
Here, Joanna.
There are not two chairs, yeah.
It's fine. So we can finish. We can finish.
I'm also happy to answer questions if there's any about that face. I didn't mean to be like, no questions. Okay, good. That's fine.
If someone could use, Greg's chair.
Oh my God. Really? Sit right there, Mike. That's all you.
You're from Danville too, so there's.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi, good to see you all. Thank you so much for having us. So as I said, I'm Joanna Doran. I live in Winooski and I am the Local Food Access Director with NOFA Vermont. I'm going to talk about our first request this year, which some of you might remember a bit about from last season. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail for the folks that are new and might not be familiar with our food security programs. So we're asking for $500,000 in base funding for our food security programs. They strengthen Vermont farm viability and address food security. Our programs are Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share. So Crop Cash doubles 3 Squares Vermont or SNAP benefits when used at farmers markets. So when somebody who receives SNAP benefits goes to a participating farmers market, which include most around the state, they can get extra coupons to spend on produce at the market. Those coupons are then, used to pay for food at different vendors' booths at the market and translate to real income for farmers. The program has been in Vermont for over a decade, and the demand has grown immensely since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's been really important for Vermonters to keep local food affordable and to be able to purchase food that aligns with their values. It's majority federally funded, though it does require NOFA to provide a local matching fund. So that's where the state funding comes in. It helps to draw down that federal funding, and it helps us meet the demand for the program. So essentially, every dollar that the state invests in Crop Cash brings down additional funding from the federal government and brings that money into our local economy. Crop Cash Plus was a 2023 pilot program that expanded the Crop Cash program to all SNAP eligible food. So Crop Cash is limited by the federal requirement that those coupons be spent on just produce. And this pilot, which was funded through a one-time state appropriation, allowed us to provide an additional coupon that folks could use on things like bread, eggs, dairy, meat, the things that make up a full nutritionally complete diet. This program was incredibly popular, so much so that we had to essentially stop it early because it was being used so much and we ran out of our funding for the program. It also brought more folks to farmers markets because it made it worth it for them to spend their SNAP dollars there, even more so than with crop cash alone. It also doubled the number of farmers that we were able to support through these programs because cheese farmers, meat producers that weren't able to accept the produce only crop cash could also then receive the crop cash coupons. And it brought new customers to those farmers who weren't able to afford their products before. So it was both incredibly important for food security and bringing more income to more local farmers. So state funding will be necessary to bring back the Crop Cash Plus program. We are not able to use federal funding for that program. And so it relies on state funding. Finally, yes.
Can we pause there just before we go into the third program? Okay, Representative O'Brien.
For clarity, so crop cash is a federal program for all SNAP
Correct.
in all states.
Crop Cash is a version of a program that operates in other states. Some states might call it something else and they might have some differences in their program, but it's essentially the same.
Crop Cash Plus is just Vermont.
That's correct. There are a few other states that have gotten state funding to support a similar program. But this Crop Cash Plus is particular to Vermont in its ways.
What I was just wondering if you know the history of why did the federal government just limit it to fruits and vegetables?
That's a great question. My understanding is the intent of the grant that funds it is to encourage folks to spend their SNAP dollars and use those benefits on produce because they have a lot of nutritional value. As we all know, so do other types of food. We need protein and vegetables don't have a lot of protein. So that's why we see this Crop Cash Plus expansion to be really important. Yeah. Thanks for the questions. Okay, so our final program is Farm Share, which subsidizes CSA or community supported agriculture shares for low income Vermonters. Through this program, NOFA provides a 25 to 75% discount on purchasing a CSA share for folks that need financial assistance to buy local food. And then we pay the farm for the discount amount. It's a program that's been around for about 30 years. And we work with over 60 farms throughout the state, including Melissa at Ananda Gardens, to provide fresh produce and other types of food to folks throughout a full season. We've seen a really large increase in demand over the years. Our numbers have skyrocketed. And our typical method of funding this program through philanthropy is we've really outpaced what philanthropy can support. So in this past legislative session, we were really grateful to receive $300,000 to support Farm Share and Crop Cash. That is enabling us to serve more people in Vermont, pay farmers more money for their food, and ensure that so far this year, at least 800 households and 2 to 3 times that many individuals have been able to get a consistent supply of fresh local food. This year, we are asking for $500,000 in base funding so that we can continue meeting the same growth in demand. And so that we can bring back the Crop Cash Plus program, which provides a really vital source of money for food for people and supports double the number of farmers than Crop Cash alone. We know that food security can be achieved for everybody that lives in Vermont. And at the same time, we can support our farmers and ensure that they can profit from growing the food that we all need. Crop Cash Plus and Farm Share are proven programs that meet both of these goals. And we are really excited to talk more about these programs with you and hope that we will have your support in them. So I will take any questions.
Thank you very much.
There's some testimonies from folks if you have a moment to read through them.
You may have said it, but can you tell us again how many Vermonters are served by the 3 different programs? I think I heard 800, but I'm not sure if that was collectively or just for Farm Share.
It's so far this fiscal year, which is halfway over, it's been an estimate of 800 households. With Crop Cash, we don't track the individual or the unique households that come and use SNAP benefits. It's an estimate based on if somebody were coming every week. So it's likely a lot more than 800, but that's our estimate.
You break out of the 3 programs where you want that 500,000 to go.
Yeah, so we need at least 60,000 to go to Crop Cash to meet our federal matching requirement. We see the need for Farm Share to be 100,000. And the need for Crop Cash Plus is 200,000 based on our 2023 pilot. The remainder of the funding would go towards some of the back-end costs of printing the Crop Cash Plus coupons and materials, doing outreach to make sure that we're letting everybody that qualifies for these programs to know about them, and administrative costs, which are also in part covered by the federal grant that fund Crop Cash. So it's both of those.
Representative Lipsky?
Yeah, Chairman, can you recall for us what we recommended or were able to provide last time?
I would get it wrong if I tried to say the number. Somebody in this room knows that number.
300, right?
We received $300,000. I believe the House Agriculture Committee recommended somewhere around our request, which was $478,500.
And was that funding all provided in the budget that passed in June? Was it June ultimately? I know there were some programs that were contingent on additional revenue. Did any of that fall into the additional revenue category?
Some of it was in the contingency.
Yeah, 200. Yes, 60,000 was in contingency funding. 240,000 was what we had initially, and then we received the additional 60,000.
Did receive, okay. The contingent part. Thank you.
Just all of it. And what was base of any of that?
None of it was base. It was all one time.
It's all considered one-time funding. Other questions from the committee? Does a farmer's market that wants to participate need to do anything other than accept SNAP benefits? Have the wherewithal to do that?
Essentially, they have to fill out an agreement about understanding the rules of the program and go through some training with NOFA staff. But the requirement that they accept SNAP is the main requirement. Yeah.
So I used to run the Burlington Farmers Market. So this is one of 4 other programs that are managed through different for low income households. So, but yeah, you have to apply through the USDA to be able to run SNAP, and it depends on the size of the market. But the larger the markets, a lot of them do take SNAP. And so for a lot of us who are managing this, we have to keep account of how each of those different benefits are utilized, and then in order to reimburse each of the farmers and the vendors.
A bit of bookkeeping.
A lot.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll pass it on to Maddie.
Great. Everybody, it's nice to see you all. Like I said, I'm Maddie Kempner and I live in Cambridge. I forgot to mention. Proudly.
Formerly of West Milton.
Formerly of West Milton, born and raised West Milton. Yes. I want to share a little bit with you all about a bill that we're asking the legislature to pass this year called the Farm Security Fund. This is a new piece of legislation that would provide rapidly available, easily accessible funds for farmers that are impacted by climate disasters or other extreme weather. And I think it's helpful for me to speak about this from NOFA's perspective because we've had our Farmer Emergency Fund in place since 1997. And having that fund has really allowed us to learn a lot about what farmers experience and what farmers need in the wake of the kinds of events like Tropical Storm Irene. That was essential for a lot of farmers back in 2011 and also from the last couple of years. We've learned a lot. Farmers have learned a lot. The state collectively has learned a lot from the flooding that happened in 2023 and 2024. And we also know that federal programs are not well suited to our farmers here in Vermont generally. The Agency of Ag's task force survey report lets us know that 70% of respondents to that survey in 2023 did not have any kind of crop or livestock insurance. And I will say that I've learned that that's true of not just our smaller scale diversified and organic producers, but even producers of commodities. And, corn growers are often also not well covered by crop insurance. We also know that this state has played a really meaningful role in supporting farmers through these kinds of events. So the BGAP program, the Business Emergency Gap Assistance Program, that the state stood up in 2023 to support farms and all types of businesses in responding to the flooding, really meaningfully supported our working lands businesses. And we have learned through the BGAP program and in talking with the Agency of Agriculture that we can improve upon that process. So you all may know that some of the grants that went out or the relief funds that went to farmers through the BGAP program took months and months to actually reach them. And since the program was run through the Agency of Commerce, it didn't necessarily always meet the needs, nor was it designed in a way that really squarely fit farmers' particular circumstances. So the Farm Security Fund really is a reflection of what we have learned and how we think we can improve on that process to do better in the future. We also know that from our direct experience administering the emergency fund, that rapid relief can really make a huge difference for folks in responding to these kinds of disasters. So getting payments to folks quickly, like within a couple of weeks, can allow them to make payroll, keep their employees on, to aid in their recovery from a crisis. For example, we had farms in 2023 who had H-2A workers. And because of the timing of that flooding event, they were in a position of potentially having to lay off a large portion of their crew at the peak of the season, and then also have no help to recover and get things replanted to the extent they were able on the farm. Did you fill this up too? Yeah, thank you. Like Amy thinks I need a coffee. Excuse me, horse voice today. We know that farmers cannot pivot to seeking disaster relief their full-time job after a crisis, which is frankly the story that I've heard from dozens of farmers who really have to work hard to find what little relief is available to them after an event like the flooding. And so you all know too, at the federal level, the feeling that we experienced from a lot of producers after the flooding in 2023 was wait to clean up. Wait to go out to your fields and do anything until someone from FSA can come out and assess the damage and see, what happened and what you might qualify for. And wait until USDA maybe makes a disaster declaration because there was this sense that help was on the way. And when that disaster declaration happened, which we're glad it did, all that really created for farmers was an opportunity to apply for a low interest loan. Which for a farmer facing $500,000 in losses, sometimes more, that's not the kind of help that they need. And the federal government really just hasn't been able to come through for farmers in the way that we know they need. So that's what this fund, we hope, will do. I also just want to say all of that hassle and the administrative burden of trying to seek assistance through many different administrative agencies, fill out complex paperwork, further taxes a farmer's mental health in a time of crisis and trauma. Farms are the heart of our culture and community here in Vermont, and we know that we need to better support them when these future emergencies happen. So we really look forward to sharing more about this bill with the committee in the weeks to come, and hopefully having you hear from more farmers. And then lastly, I just want to show you the NOFA staff you can expect to see in the State House. Most of us are here today. So myself and Grace and Joanna and Jess will be in the State House regularly, and then our Farm to School Program Manager, Kayla Strom, you can also expect to see in the building. And that's all from me.
I was going to say, before we take questions, we did hear from the Farm Bureau and the Dairy Producers Alliance, and I think they each alluded to the security fund too as a
Wonderful.
legislative priority. So
excellent. Actually, I should point out in your folders there is a handout on both the Crop Cash and Farm Share Request and the Farm Security Fund. And on the bottom of the handout about the Farm Security Fund, you'll see a pretty wide array of farmer organizations that are supporting the bill and that also have really worked closely together to develop the language and the concepts and to make sure it meets all farmers' needs. So that's really important and we're proud of that. Okay, I'm happy to take questions.
yeah, any questions from Maddie? No. John?
So you're asking for 20 million?
Yes, we are seeking a $20 million, a one-time appropriation for FY26. And there's a funding formula in the bill itself that you'll see going forward that would put a base appropriation in the special fund based on the average of the previous 3 years' distributions or losses. And also just for context on that $20 million number, the Agency of Ag's own survey found that the damage just to farm businesses alone in 2023 was 44.7 million. And the total impact on the food system itself, including restaurants and other food businesses, was about 69 million. And in 2024, the losses were 14 million from farms alone.
You would stand it up based on your history now that you had a fund like this?
Oh, the Agency of Ag would administer it. But the language in the bill also includes a review board. So it would be in partnership with organizations that have supported farmers and forestry businesses through these kinds of events. And also that would have farmers and forestry operators on the board itself.
Just thinking back to a year and a half ago in the flooding, one of the concerns, might not be the right word, was the time it took for farmers to get the relief. You mentioned just there was first the burden of having to apply when everything else was happening, and then it took a while. And I know that a year later, unfortunately, when many farmers were going through the same thing, that cycle had been shortened quite a bit. If for no other reason that program was in place and and had been through us before. And then you had mentioned also that NOFA's had its own relief fund of a sort.
Yes.
Which does not have to, I imagine, comply with quite as many regulations as any government program would. Can you just talk a little bit about how long it takes for and might take with this new program to get somebody the relief?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Grayson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with our emergency fund, our average turnaround time to get checks to farmers once we had received and processed the application was 8 days. So as quickly as we could. Shout out to Bill Kavanaugh, who's our farm business advisor, received and filtered through every single one of some 200 plus applications. And our one part-time bookkeeper. We also had we have a farmer review board in place for that fund as well. So there's 4 farmers who review every application that comes through. So it is a participatory process, which is really important to us. And I believe at the end of the day for 2023, we ended up putting out about 2.1 million. Is that right, Grace? In emergency fund grants, or maybe it was 1 point. Yeah. Okay.
Through us. And what we've seen, if I may, is just year one, we had an incredible groundswell in philanthropic support and we raised $2.1 million. We held some, which turned out to be good because we had a flood the next year and we distributed it the following year. And then philanthropy was not there. The next year was like, this needs to be a governmental response. This is a repeated problem. We cannot raise this much money from our little, donors here in Vermont, was what we heard. Which is a similar pattern in terms of relief after fires out west. And so we just see like, okay, this has happened year over year. We've had to stand up BGAP programs retroactively. Wouldn't it be great to be planful about this and come together as farmer associations and make a plan about how this should work in order that we can distribute it more quickly in a less arduous manner? And it's been great to see so much consensus from all these ag groups together who have really worked hard to make a bill that works for everyone. And we're gonna hear more, a little bit of affected farmers from the members of our board.
Do we happen to know anybody, whether the governor's budget is going to include funding for this program?
We don't know yet. But it would be wonderful for you all to hear from the agency, their perspective and their experience, and their involvement with BCAP, for sure.
All right. Any other
Also
questions?
to answer one other piece of your question, which I didn't answer, the bill right now would direct the agency to turn around payments that were approved by the review board within 2 weeks. So a little bit of a longer timeline than our emergency fund, but what we think is really critical for farmers in these situations.
Lipsky.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. With regard to the philanthropy that was quite prolific in 2023, was the Vermont Community Fund a strong
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
primary?
very kind.
Significant source of funds.
And I know this year there was a lot of housing damage that maybe tilted their focus to other needs. Is that correct?
I don't know the detail of that. I know
BCF
know
was
more.
still support, is certainly still support. We saw a lot of spontaneous and organic fundraising happening year one that didn't happen year two. But BCF is an incredibly important core partner that definitely supports the emergency fund and continues to do so. We've gotten, we have steady donations come in from donors through BCF.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you had any creative suggestions on how to fund it. Whether, seriously, like say a tax, because I think there might be sympathy for, helping out Vermont farmers following.
So we really need.
Yeah.
We all
Just
need
to
to eat.
pull it out of the general fund, which has so many pressures on it already, is a tall.
I mean, I would say that's really more the role of the legislature. I will say there is some federal funding coming to Vermont as a small farm state. We are, our region in New England and Alaska and Hawaii are part of a federal package of funding that was passed in December. And so the ag agency will be administering some relief grants through that funding. Right now, that funding is, my understanding is it's retroactive, so it would only cover 2023 and 24 impacts. So I'm not sure if there's any potential for any of that funding to be used looking forward. But otherwise, yeah, we look to the legislature to answer that question.
I think we heard that number total was 20.
It's 220 million nationally for all the states.
For all the states.
And there's been an estimate that I think about 66 or 67 million might come to Vermont, but I don't know that we know that for sure yet. I think we're still waiting to see. But again, we believe that to be retroactive.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
If it works for you, Chair Durfee, I'd like to pass it to Joe. It's on our board.
Need it, take it.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's up here.
It is so dry in this building.
It is, and you know what? I should know better. I should have been prepared with my water bottle. Thank you. Okay, Joe,
So I say here.
you take it away. And we're gonna hold off, I think, on sharing slides until after Joe's done talking.
Yeah.
Okay, we see that.
Oh, sure, yeah. So if we have time for it, I've got a short video and some pictures that provide more context on what happened to our farm in Warren in the flooding, but we'll see if we have time. All right, so as I said before, I'm Joe Boston. I'm basically here as a citizen, as a small business owner, farmer, NOFA board member, advocate for farmers in general, and the passage of the Farm Security Fund in particular as a proactive rather than reactive disaster management strategy for our ag sector. So my farm is down in Warren, and out of that farm, I run a 15-year-old food manufacturing business called Vermont Bean Crafters. And that business serves as a conduit between local organic farms and the broader markets of the Northeast. We turn beans, grains, vegetables into value-added products like bean burgers that get served in restaurants, universities, grocery stores, hospitals, K through 12 schools, even around New England. So our farm also hosts a multi-farm TSA connecting 3 other organic farms with over 150 families in the Mad River Valley. We host willow weaving and plant propagation workshops and community events like Butterfest that Grace said. That's a celebration of the fat of the land, the richness of being together. And named the farm Cloudwater Farm to reflect the hydrological cycles that defined the rich floodplain from time immemorial where this farm is. So standing in our field, you'll see the most gorgeous assortment of clouds arching over the green mountains. Sandy loam wicks up the not too distant water table into the verdant plants underfoot, and the mountain-fed Mad River channels coolly pass all along the 2,000 plus feet of the western edge of the farm. Everything that defines this place and all the crops that leave this place are shaped by and contain cloud weather. It's a beautiful and profound thing. And yet, with both climate change and shifts in land use uphill and upstream of our farm, it also portends humbling risks. So the video we'll shows the aftermath of a flash flood that happened in August 9th of 2023. So, and that was after and before some other less intense but still consequential flood events, and another bizarre season of surges of precipitation amidst fully saturated soils. So while the rains are increasing, we have uphill forest canopy diminishing as more private roads and residences chip away at the hillsides of our watershed. Soils get saturated and loosens more easily, and all those acres of sediment have nowhere to go but through this bottleneck of a culvert that serves to raise the height of the water and focus its force so that it enters our fields with an impressive velocity, carrying surprisingly large stones and logs much further into our fields than I would have ever thought possible. After the floodwaters raged over the bank of this stream that used to be a 2x2 rivulet and that I could easily stride across, it's now a meters wide field of gravel and tree limbs with only mature willow, pine, and alder holding in place. We lost several plum trees, grapes, and spans of annual fields, and for the second time in 3 years, an important tractor bridge that allows us to more safely and efficiently move between fields. The high watermark flattened the grass on either side of a fresh planting of cherry trees. They're part of an agroforestry demonstration planting that had all been established with climate change in mind. So after that event, I knew I needed to reberm the stream bed as soon as possible, or else every subsequent rain event was going to rage into our production fields. A spur of the stream was now running into one of the fields, pooling and returning to the aquifer there. I knew I needed to move a lot of earth fast, but I wasn't even clear what I was allowed to do. So was I allowed to touch a stream of this scale under any circumstances? Did I need a permit signed off on an engineer to make the town and state happy? Did I need to put things back the way they were? Or could I improve the stream to make it better for our farm as well as for reducing sedimentation in the Mad River? How was I going to pay for this? What sort of documentation would I need to provide along the way? And what were my rights in the context of the land trust and NRCS contracts? So in the end, again, like on top of running a business and having a toddler and doing all this stuff, I'm reaching out to the town of Warren, Agency of Transportation, because it's their culvert, NRCS, FSA, UVM Extension, Mad River Water Protectors, other farmers going through things for advice, construction and earth moving professionals, and Interlace Commons, who has applied expertise in managing water through landscapes. And ultimately, all these people are pointing me to other people, and no one could give me concrete answers. And I quickly realized how badly there needs to be a dedicated resource page, flowchart of questions and answers to help farmers in particular, landowners in general, navigate what to do when nature lands in our home place this way. So funding for sure, roadmap as well, please. We ultimately were able to have an NRCS tell us that we wouldn't need permits, like the watershed that drains into this stream was fortunately under the size that it would need permits pulled. So we were able to put it back. The funding for that came from the NOFA emergency fund. That money was enough to at least deal with this stream issue. It was not enough for us to also do the earth moving we need to do to help keep silt compounding into the bottom of our barn. That still is an open-ended issue that we're waiting to resolve. So ultimately, we have lots of work to do individually and collectively. Our story is just ultimately a pretty minor one out of hundreds across the state. There's lots of farms from Footbrook to Burnt Rock, Bone Mountain, all the farms at the Intervale. I encourage you to look into their stories and the rebuilding that they're needing to do. We need more information sharing, more in situ demonstration, more nimble funding mechanisms to keep this sector intact and hopefully thriving amidst all these uncertainties. And so the creation of the Farm Security Fund won't solve our problems in one go, but hopefully it can help farmers buy some time and help heal and adapt to this new normal. The return on investment for the people is clear, and we not only need to eat, but we need stories and examples of how we can come together to solve these problems. And we need to acknowledge that the far-sighted management of the 1.2 million acres of agricultural lands in Vermont is likely the best investment we can make for our collective future.
Thank you. Questions? Lee? Questions or thoughts?
Will we,
Yeah.
will we see the video?
I can share it right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Pictures, perfect.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's if we wanted to get wonky, I gave Maddie also a bunch of Google layers of like, we're all beautiful prime ag soils and we're also floodplain and we're also just the top of like how the
I feel your pain.
got a similar situation.
All right.
So the water basically is up above like that and just like a fire hose.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to share sound, it's gonna pick us up.
Turn the mic on.
I do narrate it, but it's not so critical. And again, so this stream used to be just like 2 feet wide.
It's also small.
Send it to you, email it to me.
We can, yeah, we can send it to you for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to eat up the rest of your time.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe we can send a link.
You definitely.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Representative Nelson.
thank you. How far is that from the Mad River?
So the Mad River defines the western border of our farm. So this feeds into the Mad River.
Probably in the Mad River has a natural population of trout or dead.
Yeah, it does get seeded now, but yeah.
Yeah. Was that maybe a little spawning tributary, or you think most of them stay right now?
That one, I don't think as much, just that specific one. But we did, when we put it back together, made it a little bit more like a beaver would. So the Mad River itself is going to have different, better results for sedimentation and dissolved oxygen to benefit all the trout.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely, it's better quality, and I'll send it to you all as a follow up. Okay.
The field.
Mhm.
Like you said, those scenes were all over.
Yeah, and then we have a 3,800 square foot barn from 1906, the old, what was the milking parlor. It's just like a slab on grade. And it has now like 2 inches of sticky silt on it. And so we've got to do some berms and swales and terraforming to mitigate that. But it's basically, it's a mountain, it's bedrock right there, Route 100. It's got nowhere to go. And so now every time it rains, it just comes in. So
Part of the LaRue farm. Yeah.
we are just a couple miles south of LaRue.
For Kingsbury.
That's the farm.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Such a pretty valley.
Wow, it's gorgeous.
Great slopes.
So any other questions for Joe? All right. Okey-doke.
Yeah.
Chair Durfee and everybody, thank you so much for having us today and for your kind attention. As I said earlier, my name is Becky Madden and I serve on the NOFA board, and I've also been a farmer in Vermont for 20 years. And for the past 8 years of those, I've worked for the University of Vermont Extension as a soil health specialist and a research assistant professor, specifically working with vegetable farmers. So I'm offering several different perspectives in my short time today. I don't need to describe to you the existential threat from climate change, but for the people who work the land, our farmers who grow food for our communities, the raging abnormality of these events are catastrophic and will only become worse. As reading the other day, a climate scientist named Peter Kalmus, I believe you say his name is, and he said, it's not a new normal. A lot of climate messaging centers around this idea that it's a new normal, but it's not. We've got a real crisis here. And that's what I'm contending with, right? Is like, these are not abnormalities. This is probably going to get worse. In Vermont and much of the Northeast, we've heard the predicted climate impacts we'll have on agriculture, but we're also quickly learning that here, this is not a new normal, and it's not going to fit into a neat scientific model. Instead, we're reacting to events as they happen, and we're never quite prepared enough to stop the damage, but we're also never quite surprised. The good news is that we're cohering together as communities, farm supporters, farmers, folks like you. It's been really incredible with the creativity, the agility, the fundraising, the support of many different people coming together. It's been truly beautiful to be part of this community during this time. I also think it's become quite apparent what our vulnerabilities are right now. And I think this proposed bill that Maddie and so many others have worked hard to come together to propose addresses one very significant vulnerability that we are able to address right now. As Maddie mentioned, based on the survey data the Agency of Ag collected, we're looking at $44 million of losses just in 2023 alone directly to farmers. The next year, $14 million. My own farm in Orwell was no exception to these losses just from heavy rainfall in 2023. The average loss was 28% across all farms in that year who reported damage. With my work at UVM Extension, I work in soil health, and I'm funded, 80% of my funding comes with the Clean Water Improvement Program. So my job is to help farmers improve soil health practices. But when I see extreme weather come, it washes away soil and nutrients, and it's really backtracking on this work. We are quite literally losing ground on the work the state is doing. And I think that's a really big contradiction happening right now where we're doing such great work and we're also losing so much of this. I also want to note that these financial losses mean that farmers don't have the capacity to make these improvements. I've done some research on this. Farmers, the number one thing that helps them implement soil health practices is money and comfort with finances. So it's a twofold problem from the climate impacts. Creating a farm security fund won't solve the climate crisis and it won't repair a broken farm economy. It can play a critical role in getting farmers through an urgent and very temporary loss. These are strong businesses, but it's a very acute moment in time. They need to make payroll, pay loans and mortgages, and these expenses don't stop when the crops are lost. And I've seen this on my own farm and so many farms I work with. It's a very acute moment where they need help. And as Maddie said, right away. Last year, as the floodwaters were rising, my job is to help people, and it's such a satisfying job. But as the floodwaters were rising, I was calling everybody I know who I thought might flood. What can I do? And they almost laughed. They were like, do you have $500,000? Like, I can't help right now. I can't help them through this. And, in the first year in 2023, a lot of, one farmer posted on their blog, they were able to rally and clean up that year. But the second year and this is a quote from them, it had a different effect. It was downright depressing. GoFundMes are such a beautiful testament to Vermont's ability to rally around community, but they are not the mechanism for keeping our agriculture going. We also know that it's hard to plan for the unknown. And I want to note that this is not just about flooding. Climate models predict also it's going to be hotter, windier, and drier. So we are looking at so many different things happening, people having losses in extreme wind events, fire, drought, heat stress. We've got it all as a potential. And farmers are doing so much work to prepare for this. They're so ahead of us in this. They're doing all this work on the ground. They are, Joe, they're planting for agroforestry. They're diversifying. They're putting up windbreaks. They're on this game, but they can't, the odds are stacked against them. And I think this proposed legislation is a really critical step in helping them get through this. So thank you for your time and all you do for farmers.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
So thank you for your time. My name is Melissa Oliva. I am the co-owner of Ananda Gardens, Vermont Wellness Farm. We're across the street in Horn of the Moon. We're the closest farm to you guys, actually. And we started our farm 10 years ago. We are a proud member of the Vermont organic farm community. And we've been working closely with NOFA since we started. Today, I'm here to inspire you to vote for both of these proposals that we have today. And I want to clarify why both or the three. It sounds like three, but actually it's like the Crop Plus and the farm share program and the fund in case of to be prepared for extreme weather. Why both? Because as farmers, we are not going to be able to produce the food that is required for our low income communities if we don't have the support of our community. And when I talk about support, it is the specific money piece of it, but also to show up when we need it. Because what happened to us in July 7 of 2023 could have ended up our business, just like that. I saw my husband for the first time crying, not knowing what was going to happen to him and all the work that we have put into the land because of water that we need to feed the soil, but it was also destroying in minutes all our hard work. We lost a full greenhouse of tomatoes, like a 70-foot by 40 big greenhouse of tomato crops that would have represented around $30,000 for us, which actually we already owe to the Vermont Community Loan Fund, who also support us and partner with us in farming. And in the moment, with all, like Joe described, of like going through all these rattles of like, how are you going to, and payroll and the emotional task of what it's taking, knowing that your community is also drowning in front of you without not being able to do anything because our road got eroded and we got completely isolated. It took a couple of months to repair one of the roads and a couple of days to recover our access to the farm. So we had payroll in front of us, we have all our responsibilities, and no one to really support us but NOFA. NOFA helped us. NOFA took 8 days to provide the support so we can payroll and we can be on top of our economic financial responsibilities. So that in that way, we could continue support. We've been partnering with NOFA for 4 years on the Farm Share program, providing farm shares to low-income families in our community. 20% of our whole revenue comes from that program. So it's important to us. And I can imagine it's like around the same number for other farms that also participate in these shares. From that 20%, half of those people who register for this program are single moms. This is who are we benefiting. And I want to tell you the story of Anna. Anna is a single mom who has become a new American a year ago, and she's been benefiting from this program. And before coming here, I was like, what can I tell them? So we have your voice there. And what Anna told me is that there wouldn't be a way in this world that she would be able to provide this food to her daughter if it wasn't for NOFA program. That is so critical. And I've been in this room for almost an hour, and I've been seeing how caring you are and how you show up the care for people in your interactions. And I'm gonna leave today trusting that you're caring for people in our community, trusting that you are here because you believe in providing to our families and managing our tax funds in ways that are efficient. It's not about just like saying yes to everything, but this is important to us. So I'm really positive and hope that you guys are going to support our propositions today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
I wonder if you have questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you for sharing your testimony and Anna's as well. Representative Nelson.
How big is your farm here?
It's 20 acres.
And it's Where is it located? I'd like to come visit.
Sure, sure. It's on the banks of the Griceville Reservoir. It's
right, yeah.
Horn of the Moon Road. And if you're on Route 12,
Joseph?
you'll see a sign on the road that says Ananda Gardens River Willen Farm. 5 miles on the
I
right.
go by it, coming here and going home.
Oh, please come and visit us. We just opened a farm stand building, which with federal funds actually from a grant from the Fed. And that was also life changing because now we're going to go 4 seasons. And that's exciting.
Yeah, wonderful.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
For having us.
Is there anyone else who was hoping to say anything, Madam?
Well, not that we had planned. I don't know if we have time for any last minute folks to jump in.
Not today.
Yeah, I know you have folks coming in after us, so.
Yeah, but why don't we, I'll just say again that there's, other opportunities to always to hear from you all. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your work. For your, thank you.